My name is Ann Wright. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel and a former U.S. diplomat who resigned in opposition to the war in Iraq. We are here in front of the Ecuadorian Embassy on Sunday, June 24th, to ask the government of Ecuador to grant political asylum to Wikileaks founder Julian Assange. This is the second vigil that we've had here in Washington, D.C. in the last 3 days. It shows the extent of concern that we have as American citizens toward Julian Assange and the possibility that the United States might try to ask for extradition for Julian Assange from Sweden should he be sent by the UK government to Sweden. I would like to introduce Ray McGovern, who is a retired CIA analyst and who was a briefer of presidents of the United States, to explain more about the charges against no charges against Mr. Assange, but the impact of his request for political asylum. Ray?
Thank you, Ann, and thanks for making the point that there aren't any charges. It's the most bizarre thing. The Swedes want him extradited, but they won't question him and they won't charge him. Something smelly here. The real reason is to get their hands on him so they can turn him over to the United States for lots of goodies that the United States has offered Sweden. That's the way it works. Right now, Julian Assange is holed up in the Ecuadorian Embassy in London, where he took refuge just 3 days ago. It was a big shock, but when you think about it, what were his options? He had no options. The High Court in Britain, under pressure from the United States, had already turned down his request not to be extradited to Sweden, not to be extradited, despite the fact that there were no questioning, there was no charges. Now, one of the things that people have is a misconception about, Julian Assange. Well, he's accused, he's alleged to have committed some sexual indiscretions with 2 women in Sweden. Why doesn't he go back to Sweden and face the music? Well, what people don't realize is that he tried to do precisely that. He delayed his departure from Sweden for 5 full weeks, imploring the Swedish authorities, come question me, what are the charges? They wouldn't do it. And so he went to London, where he thought he would find a more hospitable atmosphere. Not so. U.S. influence is very strong in London as well. And as I say, the High Court turned down his appeal for not being extradited. So he went into the Ecuadorian embassy and has refuge there. And the question now is how much pressure the Ecuadorian embassy will be able to withstand from the likes of our government to do the right thing. And of course, the right thing is to grant him political asylum, or anyone in the world who's worth and worthy and deserving of political asylum. It's Julian Assange. One last footnote, addressing this business about submitting to questioning by the Swedish authorities. As I mentioned, he spent 5 weeks in Sweden trying to get them to do that. They wouldn't. In England, there's a mutual treaty between Sweden and England whereby witnesses can be questioned remotely. Would the Swedes do it? No, they wouldn't do it. Makes you wonder what's going on here. But it also opens an opportunity, because now he's in the Ecuadorian embassy, and I don't see what would prevent the Ecuadorians from saying, yes, come on in, Swedish officials, come on in, or interview him remotely and get this whole thing straightened out. Because to the degree there's any reality to the allegations in Sweden, they should indeed be addressed. They can't be addressed if Sweden is still pulling its feet, dragging its feet, in hopes that he'll be extradited and they can get him over to the United States, where very high officials have already said they would charge him for espionage, carrying very bad penalties.
Thank you, Ray. Are there any questions from our press that are here?
Yes, I'm assuming that we know that over the years WikiLeaks has been valuable. We think it's been valuable. Can you tell us what maybe the most valuable things were that WikiLeaks has done for the?
Yeah. Well, how much time do I have? There's a long list of things. The Arab Spring, the cables on Tunisia, and the Egyptian cables. But it's the potential. It's knowing that this is a way to get the story out there. And I think the most telling episode that I can think of is 9/11. There were all manner of people who knew that 9/11 was coming or coming very soon. Colleen Rowley and her FBI colleagues out there in Minneapolis, they knew that Moussaoui needed to be questioned. They knew that there was something going on there. They were completely rebuffed by the authorities at FBI headquarters. There was a sort of ossified bureaucracy there which wouldn't say yes. Now, Colleen asked her colleagues, do you think that if WikiLeaks existed at that time, you would have gone there, out of channels? They said, yes, it was so serious that we would have violated discipline and gone to WikiLeaks, and maybe that message would have gotten out, and maybe we could have prevented 9/11. Even more telling, Bogdan Zakovic, a FAA marshal, inspector, head of the red team, trying the defenses in airports and aircraft, found out that 90% of the time he and his team could smuggle weapons onto aircraft in U.S. airports. He tried to get this word out, no one would listen. He was finally shut off and said, don't report on this anymore. We asked Bogdan Zakovic, would you have gone to WikiLeaks? He said, I certainly would, because I knew what was coming. It was inevitable, okay? Now, that's the proof in the pudding. If the ossified bureaucracy or the self-interest press won't carry these stories, you need a new fourth estate. I call it the fifth estate. It's in the ether. Julian Assange had found a way to tap it, and so long as there's a place like that to go, the worst thing that happened in our lifetime, probably the 9/11 catastrophe, could have been prevented, and we would not have to worry about so many infringements on our civil liberties and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people killed on the pretext that they had something to do with 9/11. So it has great potential.
Thank you very much, Ray. Again, we would like to plead with the government of Ecuador to grant political asylum to Julian Assange, who as the founder of WikiLeaks has provided a tremendous service to the people of the world as they find out what their governments have been up to. Criminal actions, in many cases, committed by government officials. So we again ask that the President of Ecuador and all of the government officials of Ecuador grant political asylum to Julian Assange. Thank you.